Hello and welcome to the 2021 Geneva Peace Week opening ceremony. My name is Danson and allow me to extend a warm welcome to all of you who are attending here in person in Geneva and across the world online. For the past 8 years, we've come together annually to dissect the parameters of peace processes and to repackage them in dynamic and innovative ways. And this year is more special in more ways than one. In the wake of such a difficult pandemic, our commitment to building peace is more urgent than it has ever been before. If you're attending online, your presence here today reminds us that even though geography might divide us, our collective vision of building peace is what unites us. This year also presents an opportunity to hear from attendees who are coming to Geneva Peace Week from all over the world. And with that said, we'd like to hear, what does peace mean to you?
Peace to me means no religiophobia, knowledge to understand each other, and power not to harm.
Freedom from civil disturbance.
Communication, promoting communication to transform conflicts.
Peace, the key to humanity sustenance.
The state of security, harmony, and nowhere.
Living in cohesion.
Freedom for disturbance, tranquility.
Peace is the promotion of human rights and the rule of law in society.
Freedom from violence, from peers.
Peace connects us all.
A state of serenity.
For me, this is peace.
Compassion for others.
So harmony among the nations without war.
Peace is love. Love is freedom.
Peace means hope.
It's so great to hear from our attendees from around the world and to hear what peace means to them. This week, whether you're joining an online workshop or engaging with podcasts or videos from our digital series, we welcome you to get the most out of it. And in fact, we'd like to turn it back to you attendees and to hear, what would you like to get out of Geneva Peace Week?
I'm most excited to learn how people are thinking about and working for peace in a more than human world.
It's high time to establish an environment of peace.
How is the international community working to support the emergency crisis in Afghanistan?
How our community is answering to today's challenges.
The intersection of peace, conflict, and conservation.
The role of women in peace processes.
The widened scope of peace as a concept.
To network with other peace builders during this event. Hello!
Indeed, there's so much that you can get out of Geneva Peace Week 2021. Sign up for online workshops, engage with content from the digital series, and download our mobile app for the full networking and interactive experience. From the Geneva Peace Week team, we welcome you to enjoy the rest of the opening ceremony. Thank you.
Welcome to Geneva Peace Week.
Welcome
to Geneva Peace Week.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome to Geneva Peace Week.
To Geneva Peace Week.
Welcome
to Geneva Peace Week.
To Geneva Peace Week.
To Geneva Peace Week.
Welcome
to Geneva Peace Week.
Director General, Monsieur le Conseiller Fédéral, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends, bienvenue, benvenuti, welcome to Geneva Peace Week. They said it better than I could. A warm welcome to all of you following online and to all of you here in the Graduate Institute. Great to see so many faces, even though sometimes only seeing the eyes is a little funny, but it's good. Seems like I'm at a dentist convention sometimes with all these things. But great to have you here, great to be in a room again, great to be face-to-face, and great to start this week together. Since this event is happening in both English and French, allow me just to quickly show you how the simultaneous interpretation happens. Technology is great. There's a QR code for anyone who needs it in here. And if we could just show the next slide, that also shows for the people following online, that little button at the bottom of the Zoom, the little world, this funny one, where you can choose the language. You can choose to follow all in English. Vous pouvez décider de suivre complètement en français. Non c'è in italiano questa volta. But you can also choose to follow completely in the original, because we will also have French spoken up here. Okay? Now that part's out of the way. My name is Rainer Gude. I'm the executive coordinator of Geneva Peacebuilding Platform, and I'll be your MC for today. So you'll hear me more than once. Right? My role might be also to interrupt from time to time. I'm also keeping the time. And the title of this year's Peace Week is From Seeds to Systems for Peace, Weathering Today's Challenges. Before we get to our very impressive list of speakers, please take a moment and look around and introduce yourself to the very impressive list of listeners all around you. Just turn around, introduce yourself to someone and say, why did you come? What are you looking forward to? And to those of you online, please write in the chat, where are you calling in from and what are you looking forward to? So don't be shy, turn around, introduce yourself, and say what are you looking forward to today. So I'll take up my role as interrupter. I knew this would take a while. Thank you, everyone. Glad you're enjoying yourselves. It's always harder to take the word back once you give it to everyone. So I would like to keep going. There's no power whatsoever. So thank you, everyone. I'd like to continue the program. I'm glad you found so many interested listeners. I even saw some business cards exchanged. I know you haven't exchanged business cards in like 18 months, so you're all excited. But I'm glad that you're enjoying yourselves already. Nice to feel the buzz in the room. Why don't I give you just a little stats? For Geneva Peace Week so far, there are 2,213 registrations, 1,323 for the first time. We have 107 speakers lined up, 116 partner organizations, 738 of you who've registered come from the NGO world, 368 from international organizations. We've got 423 from academia, that probably includes some of you students, and we even have 104 from the private sector, so great to have you here as well. And when you look around this room, you see the other peace builders, the other listeners that we talked about, but you also see the people who might possibly, if you also show up for the closing ceremony, win, as we said. We're trying to do everything we can to get you face-to-face. So if you come to the opening and to the closing, you qualify for a lottery, even to win a boat trip on the Lake of Geneva with a meal on it. So I have the ticket here. If you show up at the closing and you showed up at the opening, there will be a chance that you get that as well. So we're trying to tease out every different way to get you to come to our wonderful events also live. Now, Geneva Peace Week is made possible because a dedicated team of staff and partners come together every year to make it happen. Besides the Geneva Peacebuilding Platform and its 5 partners, get ready in Geneva, you love acronyms, right? I know you know all these, but the CCDP, the GCSP, DCAF, CUNO, and Interpeace are the partners of Geneva Peacebuilding Platform. They'll be explained a little bit more if you didn't memorize all those acronyms just yet. The other partners, of course, the Graduate Institute, the United Nations Office at Geneva, and of course with the generous support from Switzerland, which makes Peace Week happen every year. But this year we have one more organization to thank, and that's the Service Industriel de Genève, SIG, who actually last night lit up the jet d'eau in purple. That is slightly photoshopped. We didn't have a boat view there. We didn't have a drone. But you will see an image later. And purple is the color of Geneva Peace Week, and we're delighted and thankful to them that they allowed this to happen. And we, of course, thank also the Swiss mission who made this happen. We had some fun selfies yesterday evening. Each of these partners will now have a chance to share us some opening remarks. But first, as we're here to talk about peace, let us take a small moment of silence to remember all the places in the world where peace is at risk, or simply a distant hope. Thank you. So to get us started, I would like to invite here to the lectern the Director General of the United Nations Office at Geneva, Tatiana Volovaya. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My dear colleagues, it's a real pleasure to be here for the opening of Geneva Peace Week and to see your faces. And really, this experience of networking, of talking, of connecting to each other, it really shows how hungry we are for the meetings like that, and how important the events which take place here in Geneva can be for everybody. This is a very impressive statistics we just heard, how many people have registered for Geneva Peace Week. And I'm really happy that we're learning from the experience and that we always are looking for some silver linings when we have a crisis. And in COVID pandemic, the silver lining is that we really moved to work more and more together, to be inclusive, to be integrated, to use modern technologies in order to stay connected and in order really to invite more and more participants to the events we're having. So I'm really happy to open this edition of Geneva Peace Week. And first of all, I would like to thank all our partners for their support and their communication skills and for the opportunity to bring a fantastic crowd of speakers and listeners. Also, I would like to say that, of course, what we saw during the pandemic was exactly the period when we understood that we need multilateralism, multilateral diplomacy more than ever. Pandemic showed us that really all the key challenges of global world are global challenges. And in order to address global challenges, we need to have multilateral solutions. And we were really happy to see during pandemic that the need for multilateral diplomacy is increasing. Though we're always saying that, and that's unfortunately true, that multilateralism is under attack these days, nevertheless, during the last months, we saw the examples how really important multilateral dialogue on peace was important. Here in Geneva, over previous months, we had quite a number of historical meetings. We had a special meeting 5+1 on Cyprus with the participation of Secretary General here in April. We had an emergency summit on Afghanistan in September. We had a political events here on Syria. We had bilateral meetings between Russia and United States also here in Geneva. That shows that multilateral diplomacy is alive, but it also shows that spirit of Geneva is alive, because we all know when the countries or conflicting parties agree to come to Geneva, that means that maybe they are not yet agree to reach an agreement, but they already agree to listen to each other. And listening to each other, building confidence in each other, building trust is crucial. It's the first step of building peace. This week we will speak about many sides of peace. I would like to draw your attention to one side of peace, the interconnection between peace and climate change. Yesterday, COP26 started. We are all looking forward to the discussions there, but not only to the discussions, but to the concrete results. We all realize that maybe that's the last chance of humanity to address the climate change challenge. Maybe that's our last attempt, last chance to stop the war which we are leading on nature. So it's very important to understand that in many parts of the world where already there is no peace, there are conflicts. The climate change can deteriorate the situation even more. In many parts of the world where people really feel they are left behind, the climate change can make the situation even worse. So that's important to talk and to discuss. As I said, there are very many dimensions on peace, and I'm very happy that we have so many digital workshops and other online events which are really uniting people from all around the world. And I'm looking forward to results of this week. I'm looking forward to these discussions, to these brilliant exchanges, to these brilliant ideas. And I really look forward to use your collective brain in order to make our work better, more efficient, and really to deliver what the people all around the world are expecting of the United Nations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director General. You are a regular at Peace Week, and it's great to have you back. And now we have the immense pleasure of inviting to the stage for the first time Federal Councillor Ignacio Cassis, head of the Federal Department of Foreign Affairs, who will speak in French. La place est à vous.
Merci beaucoup, cher directeur. Excellences, mesdames et messieurs, c'est tout d'abord un plaisir d'être aujourd'hui parmi vous pour lancer cette semaine de la paix, une tradition qui commence à être connue dans le monde entier, qui a été soutenue par le département que j'ai l'honneur et le plaisir de diriger et qui, je souhaite, puisse continuer à lancer ces débats et ces discussions qui sont de plus en plus, hélas, nécessaire. Cultiver la paix et relever les défis contemporains de la graine à l'écosystème. Le thème de cette semaine de la paix témoigne des défis et des opportunités actuelles en matière de paix et sécurité. Il souligne aussi le rôle que chacun d'entre nous, chaque graine, doit jouer pour faire fructifier les semences de paix. Je vous souhaite donc la bienvenue à cette 8e édition de la Semaine de la paix. La pandémie de Covid-19 nous occupe depuis plus d'un an et demi dans un contexte de tensions géopolitiques croissantes, de lutte commerciale et d'effets de plus en plus perceptibles du changement climatique partout dans le monde. La pandémie vient s'ajouter aux défis humanitaires alors que le nombre de personnes déplacées dans le monde est le plus élevé depuis la Deuxième Guerre mondiale et qu'une multitude de conflits armés peinent à trouver une issue négociée. Et pourtant, la pandémie a servi d'accélérateur dans de nombreux domaines, comme dans ceux de l'innovation économique et de la numérisation. Nous avons compris les défis qui se posent à nous et l'importance de les relever conjointement. J'aimerais souligner ici quelques opportunités que nous offre l'une des 4 pistes thématiques de cette semaine, à savoir mobiliser la sphère digitale pour la paix. Premièrement, l'innovation technologique peut jouer un rôle important pour prévenir et résoudre des conflits. Les outils numériques contribuent par exemple à anticiper les causes de guerre, à documenter les violations du droit international humanitaire et à retrouver des personnes disparues. Ces outils reposent notamment sur l'analyse des médias sociaux et l'intelligence artificielle. Le premier sommet du Geneva Science Diplomacy Anticipator a montré l'importance, il y a quelques jours, pour la gouvernance internationale et la prévention des conflits, d'anticiper les évolutions scientifiques, les évolutions technologiques et de renforcer le dialogue entre science et diplomatie. Genève continuera de jouer un rôle pionnier pour renforcer l'application des nouvelles technologies pour la paix. Deuxièmement, les nouvelles technologies offrent des opportunités inédites en matière de cybermédiation. Ici à Genève, l'ONU, Swiss Peace, le Centre pour le dialogue humanitaire et Diplo Foundation ont développé des outils qui permettent d'adapter la médiation pilier des bons offices de la Suisse, à l'espace numérique. L'utilisation d'outils numériques dans les processus de paix permet également d'y inclure des entités qui, à l'instar des ONG, ne participent d'ordinaire pas aux négociations. Nous soutenons toute innovation permettant de rendre le dialogue de paix plus inclusif, ceci au-delà de la période des restrictions sanitaires. Troisièmement, la pandémie a aussi démontré les limites des nouvelles technologies pour un autre travail. Pour renforcer le dialogue, un smart mix entre digital et présentiel est ainsi nécessaire. Les lieux de rencontre physiques gardent toute leur importance et nous sommes en train de le vivre ici et maintenant. Genève, comme ville de paix, doit demeurer le lieu privilégié des rencontres qui visent à transformer les défis communs en opportunités communes. En juin de cette année, le président de la Confédération et moi-même avons accueilli ici les présidents des États-Unis et de la Fédération de Russie. Or, s'ils ont choisi de se rencontrer ici, c'est en raison de l'atmosphère et de la façon de travailler de la Genève internationale, ainsi que de la neutralité de notre pays, et qui ceci encourage un dialogue constructif. La présence d'un grand nombre d'organisations internationales, d'entreprises privées, d'ONG et d'institutions académiques constitue un terreau fertile. La Suisse continuera à s'engager pour renforcer le rôle de Genève comme ville de paix, qui est à même de combiner ses capacités d'accueil de conférences classiques avec des outils de dialogue innovants. Cette semaine en est un bon exemple. C'est d'ailleurs cet esprit de Genève, un esprit de dialogue, un esprit d'innovation, que la Suisse veut amener au Conseil de sécurité de l'ONU, auquel elle est candidate pour la période 2023-2024. Par son travail dans cette enceinte, la Suisse entend apporter un plus à l'innovation, au développement durable, au multilatéralisme, à l'humanité et à la paix. C'est pour ça que le slogan prévu est « A Place for Peace ». Je tiens à remercier les équipes de la plateforme de Genève pour la consolidation de la paix et tous les partenaires qui ont œuvré à l'élaboration de ce programme riche réunissant des acteurs de tous les horizons. Ce n'est qu'ensemble que nous pourrons cultiver la paix et passer des premières graines de la paix que l'on plante, chacun à son échelle, à un écosystème de paix durable, pérenne et solide. Pour la petite histoire, à Fribourg, dans le canton de Fribourg, aujourd'hui encore, vous pouvez aller voir le traité sur la paix perpétuelle entre la Suisse et la France. C'est un document historique qui vous semble peut-être venir d'une autre époque. Mais allez le voir et allez réfléchir à ce que les gens à cette époque avaient décidé de faire en signant un accord de paix perpétuelle. Rien que le nom vaut déjà le détour. C'est pour cette raison que la Semaine de la paix de Genève est un événement si précieux. Je suis impressionné de voir que depuis sa première édition en 2014, cette semaine a trouvé une place centrale sur l'agenda de la Genève internationale et que son influence rayonne aussi au-delà de la Genève internationale. Je vous souhaite donc à toutes et à tous une semaine pleine d'inspiration, de rencontres et de projets communs pour construire la paix dans le monde d'aujourd'hui et de demain. Je vous souhaite un bon travail. Je remercie les organisateurs et bien sûr le Graduate Institute et la Maison de la Paix qui vous héberge pour cette semaine. Merci à tout le monde.
Merci beaucoup. Grazie mille per le sue parole. Thank you for helping us look back and look into the future. So, on behalf of the 5 partners that make up the Geneva Peacebuilding platform, I would now like to invite Ambassador Thomas Gerber, Director of DCAF, the Geneva Center for Security Sector Governance. To you, Thomas.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, Ladies and gentlemen, dear students, dear colleagues and friends, a very warm welcome to all of you attending this opening ceremony here physically at the Maison de la Paix or online wherever you are. It's such a great pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of the Geneva Peacebuilding platform to the 2021 Geneva Peace Week, hosted in collaboration with the Graduate Institute of International and Development Studies and the United Nations Office at Geneva, UNOC. Allow me to express my particular appreciation and gratitude to my fellow speakers, Mrs. Tatiana Valovaya, Director General of UNOC, Federal Councillor Ignacio Gassis, Head of the Swiss Federal Department of Foreign Affairs, and Mrs. Marie-Laure Salle, Director of the Graduate Institute. The Geneva Peacebuilding platform is a powerful knowledge hub which aims to bring together peacebuilding actors, resources, and expertise from Geneva and from around the world. The platform is based on a partnership of 5 Geneva-based institutions on whose behalf I'm honored to speak today. These are the Center on Conflict, Development and Peacebuilding, the Geneva Center for Security Policy, Interpeace, Quakers United Nations Office, and my own organization, DCAF, the Geneva Center for Security Sector Governance. The motivation of these organizations for setting up, developing, and continuously strengthening the Geneva Peacebuilding platform hasn't really changed since it was established back in 2008. It is to share their rich and diversified experience with the wider peacebuilding community and learn from that community in return. But also it is to make an effective contribution to peacebuilding, to help make the world a better place, a more peaceful place. Supported by the Swiss Federal Department of Foreign Affairs and other platform partners, to which we owe our sincere gratitude, I would argue that the Geneva Peacebuilding platform has been able to foster a thriving international community and a network of innovative peacebuilding professionals who advance new knowledge. Professionals who have demonstrated repeatedly that they have the capacity to significantly enhance our collective understanding of issues and contexts related to peacebuilding. The platform also continues to play a creative role in building bridges between international Geneva, the United Nations peacebuilding architecture in New York, and peacebuilding activities across the world in field contexts. Given its location and composition, the Geneva Peacebuilding platform is optimally placed to facilitate outcome-oriented dialogues on peacebuilding practice and sometimes also provide necessary and honest reality checks to the diplomatic community. The platform brings a unique diversity of perspectives to peace-related discussions, cutting across disciplines, sectors, and contexts, and facilitating truly multidisciplinary and often ingenious insights and solutions. As we all know, this richness is one of the hallmarks and comparative advantages of Geneva as a global hub for governance, international cooperation, and multilateral diplomacy. A hub which hosts 39 international organizations and renowned research institutions, around 430 non-governmental organizations, and which benefits from a nearly universal representation of UN member states. There are 18 fora similar to the Geneva Peacebuilding platform in the international Geneva ecosystem, which all address different facets of multilateralism. They convene actors, generate ideas. This inspirational, and I would say deeply transformational ecosystem has not come about by coincidence. It has come about thanks to the vision foresight, determination, and the support of Switzerland and the authorities of Geneva. So let me therefore use this opportunity specifically to thank Federal Councillor Ignacio Cassis for his leadership in consciously cultivating and strengthening this quite amazing ecosystem. The Geneva Peace Week is the flagship initiative of the Geneva Peacebuilding platform. Supported by the Swiss Federal Department of Foreign Affairs, the platform's partners have organized it for the 8th time this year, always in close collaboration with the Graduate Institute and UNOC. The week-long series of workshops, discussions, and events reflect our ethos and our continuous effort to make available a flexible space for incubation, inspiration, partnership building, and for profiling and strengthening important initiatives. Initiatives such as the Principles for Peace initiative, or P4P, a powerful global participatory endeavor to bridge the gap between policy and action by enabling local, national, and international actors to craft more inclusive peace processes and develop new principles for lasting peace. This year's Geneva Peace Week is dedicated to the theme From Seeds to Systems of Peace, Weathering Today's Challenges. This theme invites us all to participate in a collective reflection and learning process about the impact which some of the most pressing contemporary challenges, like pandemics, climate change, technological change, science, or digitalization have on peacebuilding and on peacebuilding actors. The last couple of years has not been an easy period for the international peacebuilding community. Not only have we seen many adverse effects of COVID-19, such as relapse into poverty and fragility, increasing inequalities, discrimination, grievances of all kinds, and often also violence, including along gender lines. The number of violent conflict across the globe has again also increased. Geopolitics continues to be the leitmotif of the big powers, and we can see the destructive impact of this in almost every country in the global south or east. These trends and the current geopolitical divisions generate difficult questions relating to peacebuilding. While there are no easy answers, of course, I am convinced that multi-stakeholder platforms such as the Geneva Peace Week can go a long way towards overcoming paralysis and proposing approaches and solutions which are not tainted by power politics, but rather informed by the perspectives and needs of the people directly affected and based on international good practice and experience. This is exactly what the Geneva Peace Week 2021 will try to achieve. It will focus on 4 thematic tracks: creating a climate for collaboration, moving beyond securitization, harnessing the digital sphere for peace, and confronting inequalities and advancing inclusion, peace, and sustainable development goal 16. While peace-building actors are today faced with truly formidable challenges, I feel personally very confident that we will collectively succeed in further sharpening our analysis of the challenges, in identifying promising new entry points, and in generating innovative ideas on how peace-building actors can enhance their capacity so as to overcome today's global challenges. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, before closing, let me thank today's maître de conférence, Mr. Rainer Goudet, the platform's current executive coordinator, who will unfortunately leave us after this Geneva Peace Week. He and his team have done a marvelous job in creating the best possible conditions for this event to become successful. And now I wish all of us a rich, constructive, and enjoyable set of conversations imbued with nuance, critical reflection, and attention to detail. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas. That was a great explanation of the Geneva Peace Week and Geneva Peacebuilding platform. I'm glad that's recorded. We're going to put that on our website. And are you trying to take my job? Is that what you're saying? You explained it better than I could. So now a final word of welcome also from our hosts in this lovely venue. I would like to invite Dr. Marie-Laure Salle, Director of the Graduate Institute.
Merci. Madame la directrice générale, monsieur le conseiller fédéral, vos excellences, chers étudiants, chers collègues, mesdames et messieurs, je vous souhaite vraiment la bienvenue à la Maison de la Paix, a warm welcome to the Graduate Institute. It's a great pleasure and a real honor for me to be able to say a few words today for the launch of this year's Geneva Peace Week. From seeds to systems of peace, weathering today's challenges. When I saw that title, it immediately reminded me of a quote by Jean Monnet, a man who knew something about seeds and systems of peace. Rien n'est possible, nous disait Jean Monnet, sans les hommes. Bon, on dirait au sens générique du terme. Mais rien ne durerait sans les institutions, ajoutait-il. It seems to me that this proposition is still completely relevant today. In the face of our contemporary challenges, we need seeds, we need trials, attempts, some of which will succeed and survive, others not. We need individual and collective entrepreneurship and risk-taking, including with initiatives that take us quite far away from what was done before. Thinking different is a very good start. That said, though, for the promising ideas and initiatives to survive, thrive, and scale up, we should never forget the need to build systems and institutions. We probably want, however, to be building today self-questioning adaptive systems and institutions, because beyond being complex and challenging, our world is also radically uncertain and fluid. Hence, we need to deploy systems and institutions that can auto-adapt, as it were, in the face of this uncertainty and fluidity. I arrived in Geneva just over 1 year, and in that period already, I have seen signs of a changing perspective. Everybody now understands that all the challenges we are facing, whether climate, biodiversity and natural resources, inequalities, health, social disruptions, and democratic challenges, are tightly interconnected, wicked problems that negatively play into each other through worrying vicious circles. Those challenges, in other words, form system or systems, and we have therefore to move beyond the thematic and towards a more systemic perspective. This is quite complex, naturally, because our institutions, including our academic institutions, are for the most part thematically and not systematically and not systemically structured. Another thing that everybody understands now, it seems to me, is our deep and significant interdependence. The challenges themselves reveal that interdependence, and they even emerge because of it. Just think COVID, obviously. But we are also interdependent when it comes to finding solutions. Never has collaboration, and Madame la Directrice Générale already said that, and in particular international collaboration, been as necessary and as important as today. Never has the public-private, not-for-profit science interconnection been so necessary. The good news is that since I came to Geneva last year, I'm seeing that things are precisely shifting in the way they should. I see how various large initiatives are bringing together different and complementary institutional and thematic know-how and expertise to create stronger partnerships and leverage interdependence. Be it the GESDA Summit, focusing on the ways in which we can turn scientific and technological advances into seeds and hopefully also systems for peace and well-being, be it the upcoming Building Bridges Summit that underlines the importance of a positive mobilization of finance if we are to achieve our sustainable development goals, underscoring also at the same time how finance has itself so much to gain from significant progress on all those fronts. Be it the series of weeks on trade, health, democracy, and of course on peace that are increasingly approaching their main themes by focusing on the points of interconnection with others, as was just shown by the speech of Ambassador Gerber, and showing how we need, in fact, to knit together our efforts much more closely and much more systematically. All this, I want to think, points to a new phase in the long tradition of Geneva as a global policy hub. This new phase will be one where Geneva is the key place for the brokerage of connections and partnerships across institutions, sectors, across themes, and across academic disciplines. This new phase in the evolution of international Geneva also underlines how diplomacy may be changing. While classic interstate diplomacy through multilateral institutions will naturally persist and remain significant and important, there is also a more hybrid form of diplomacy that has been shaping and reshaping global governance for a while now and will continue. This is the kind of diplomacy that connects and brings together a broader range of actors that is by nature deeply multi-stakeholder and more fluid and moving in its makeup than traditional diplomacy. With great vision, Switzerland has identified this space as a critical future for international Geneva already over a decade ago. Its support to platforms and fora, such as the Geneva Peacebuilding Platform and Geneva Peace Week, has shaped a landscape of intended diversity, which in turn has become the foundation for new partnerships to confront the challenges of the future. Not all national diplomacies have had such a visionary understanding of the evolution of their own world, but maybe it is indeed not surprising that Switzerland did, l'esprit de Genève and l'esprit de Suisse. Let me underscore how important it is that Switzerland has invested for more than a decade in platforms and weeks as part of its host state functions. These platforms and weeks are today very well positioned, I would think, to be important constitutive elements of these fluid and modular systems that we will need to face in constructive ways our contemporary global challenges. The Graduate Institute has inscribed these new trends in the new charter that we gave ourselves last year. Our vision emphasizes the importance to open creative spaces for diverse communities and to foster the understanding and engagement essential for reaching a peaceful, equitable, and sustainable world. Our trademark will remain the production and the sharing of academic knowledge and expertise on global issues, but through a combination of scientific excellence, transdisciplinarity, and critical thinking, our objective is to nurture students and professionals to become decision makers open to the world and having a sense of responsibility necessary to drive positive transformation. We're also very clear in our own acknowledgement of interdependence. We know that more than ever, we will not be able to achieve our vision and mission without strong connections and partnerships. We are very proud that we've been a partner for the Geneva Peace Week since its first edition in 2014, always under the operational lead of the Geneva Peacebuilding Platform and in collaboration with UNOG. We should recognize and celebrate this partnership for the results it has achieved. It has become one of Europe's largest peacebuilding forums and a primary reference for forging cross-cutting partnerships for the promotion of peace. My thanks go first and foremost to the GPP's team, that is the dedicated backbone of Geneva Peace Week, and has successfully transformed it into an hybrid forum that happens both online and in person this year. Thanks also go to the commitment and support of the UNOG team and of, obviously, the GPP's 5 partners who have just been mentioned. Let me also obviously thank each and all participating organizations that are going to be participating in the coming week under the big tent of the Geneva Peace Week. Of course, a big thank you goes to the Institute's events and comms team, which has been doing a lot of work to prepare for today, and to the Swiss Confederation for their continued commitment and financial support of the Geneva Peace Week. And finally, allow me to give a special thanks to Hakim Venman, who has done so much for the Geneva Peacebuilding platform and the Geneva Peace Week through the years, and has accepted to become the new Director for Strategic Partnerships at the Institute, precisely at the heart of this process of structuring our acknowledged interdependence. Geneva Peace Week is a unique experience, and I'm particularly pleased it is so widely accessible so that our students, alumni, and partners can also make the most from it this year. I'm wishing every one of you an inspiring experience and rich and fruitful discussions in the coming week. Thank you very much.
Merci, Dr. Saal. Thank you to all of the speakers for these opening remarks. I believe there was quite a few grains or seeds of wisdom there, some insights into how we can touch and influence these systems. And I think we're a little more equipped to weather today's challenges. I would say the rest is up to us. However, our high-level speakers, some of them do need to get going. Don't forget the chocolate that we gave you as your gift, that we coaxed you to get you here. Have a safe trip back to Bern, Federal Councillor Cassis. And we can just give them one more round of applause for having opened them. So, to build peace, we will need some words, and we had some very insightful words. But some things, especially for peace, cannot be expressed in words. Sometimes they require to be sung. So I'd like to invite up to the stage Estelle Hughes, director of the NGO Africa Learning International. She's an international educator, a blogger, and a very talented singer. If you've been to any of the Geneva Peace Talks in the past, you may have heard her voice before. Estelle, the floor, the microphone is all yours.
Saluting all our distinguished guests as they leave, and saying hi to all of you, distinguished and engaged peace builders. It is a joy and an honor to be here today in the City of Peace. And I've got 6 minutes about to take you to different places in Africa. We're going to travel fast, but at least we're going to do it together, right? The first thing that I want to say before we start singing, I want to talk about the importance of greetings. If you have been to West Africa, you know how important it is when you meet someone to greet them properly. You want to know how they are, how their family is, if they slept well last night and what they ate. So this is the first tool for African peace community building. Then we have the Palava tree. You know, this place where we sit together to talk about important matters, right? The idea is not to put your hand up and the majority wins, like when we cast ballots. The idea is really to talk it through and to find the consensus everybody is happy with. And I salute this second tool for African peace building. Ubuntu is my favorite word when we come to talk about peace. It comes from the southern part of Africa, and anyone who is aware of what happened after the apartheid in South Africa knows that Ubuntu means I am because we are. So what I would like us to do today together is to build this spirit of togetherness, because when we talk about peace, we talk about being together, but we also talk about difficult things, all right? But when our voices come together to speak, we are empowered in these difficult moments. So what I want you to sing with me is a song that I wrote to honor disappeared child soldiers from the DRC, okay? It's called Azi, and what you're going to ask with me, together with me, is where are they? So let's rehearse this. It's Wapio, wapio, wapio. It means where are you, where are you, where are you? Okay? Let's go. 1, 2. Wapio, wapio, wapio. I love the acoustics, but you can do better. 1, 2. Wapio, wapio, wapio. You'll know when to sing it with me. So let's start. Azimwanangaye, wapio, 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 wapio. Azimwanangaye, wapio, 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 wapio. Otikibiso, hey, otikibiso. Wapio, wapio, wapio. Azimwanangaye, wapio. Wapio, wapio, wapio. Hey, hey. Wapio, wapio, wapio. Hey, hey. Wapio, wapio, wapio. Azimwanangaye, yakako, hey. Wapio, wapio, wapio. So you see, when our voices come together to demand peace, we are more powerful. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Estelle. I saw people smiling even behind their masks. Thank you for... Truly, it is important to have a bit of soul and a bit of music and a bit of harmony in all the piecework, so thank you for that. Well, that is a nice transition to what we'll now have is a panel discussion. I'll have to introduce you to the moderator. It's me. That was easy. And I get to moderate a panel in this hybrid format with people from around the world, from the US, from the Philippines, from somewhere here in Switzerland, and from Glasgow directly at the COP. We have literally found someone, it's not Greta, but we have found someone who is literally trying to make things happen there, and we've decided to put her on the panel with us as well. So, there we have our wonderful crowd. She's even in the midst of it. We didn't get you on stage there at the COP, but we got you in the room. So if you see Greta walking back in the background, you just say hi. What I'd like to do now is just quickly run through just the slides so we can see their wonderful names and titles. I won't give their whole bios and CVs. They merit much more time. You can see them on our website. But if we could just show one after the other, the slide. I get my little camera here. We have first Lindsay Felder-Cook. There we have everyone. You guys look great up on the screen, I have to say. This is probably one of the biggest television screens I've ever gotten to sit in front of, so this is fantastic. You guys look great to the whole room. But quickly, we're going to show one title at a time. If we could just show the slide again of one name after another, and then we'll get to having them speak. So first we have Lindsay. So my panelists here, they will be talking about the 4 thematic tracks that we mentioned. And if we could just show the next slide, which has one track at a time. There we go. Well, Lindsay Felder-Cook, who is our representative there at the COP, she is representative for climate change at the Quaker United Nations office. And she'll be talking about creating a climate for collaboration, ways forward for the environment, climate change, and peace. If we could quickly just show the next one. We also have Oya Dursun Oskanja, Endowed Chair of International Studies, Professor of Political Science at Elizabethtown College, USA. And she'll be talking about the confronting of inequalities and advancing inclusion, peace, and SDG 16. And the next one, we have Anne-Marie Buzatu, Vice President and COO of ICT for Peace Foundation. And she'll be talking about harnessing the digital sphere for peace. And last but not least, We have Mark Batak, Regional Liaison Officer for Southeast Asia at the GPPACSEA, best acronym I've seen in a long time, Initiatives of International Dialogue, and he'll be looking at moving beyond securitization. What risks, new horizons for peace building? So why don't we start first with you, Lindsay? Briefly, why don't you tell us, how's the atmosphere there in Glasgow? Are you guys going to get it done? What's going on? How do you feel?
How do I feel? It is, every COP is difficult. Every COP we are hoping, every COP we're usually disappointed, but every COP is critical to have. This COP is particularly tricky. Huge expectations, logistics are the most difficult I've ever seen, but we are here and it is so important to have. And so we're going to ask you both questions about the COP, but also about this thematic track that we have given to you. How would you define what's the main issues? Not just at the COP, we know climate change or the world is at stake, but what would you say needs to be discussed? What insight would you give for the rest of Geneva Peace Week, for particularly in this looking at this nexus issues of peace and environmental issues? Thank you. Well, first, I just want to say thank you so much for the Geneva Peace Week. I also want to say that we, with the Graduate Institute, and I'm looking at you, Anika, for 3 years, we put together the first real sort of conflict, climate, and peace building event at the Geneva Peace Week. And so seeing how this has blossomed in the Peace Week has been a huge achievement for you all. And I think what we're seeing profoundly are the interconnections between environment, climate, and peace. Are you hearing me all right? Is there an echo? Good.
All good.
And what we're seeing are how the root causes between environment destruction, climate change are similar drivers. We're seeing that need to work together in the global, the regional, and the local. We can talk later about the Paris Agreement, but climate change, like all other crises within the environmental range, are symptoms of a greater challenge, how to live sustainably and justly on this earth. And finally, I would just say that what we're seeing profoundly, both in the Geneva Peace Week building up very much and in our work as practitioners, is how a human rights-based approach to climate action is absolutely critical. And when I mean a human rights-based approach, I'm talking, and as a peace-building approach, I'm talking about public participation, which includes land ownership, tenancy rights. Here at the COP, things like individual redress mechanisms, rights-based approaches with human rights, indigenous people's rights, intergenerational equity, that is the youth, protecting the youth, biodiversity, food security, gender. All of these need to be grounded in our climate action to have peace building. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. And we'll get back to you with some follow-up questions, but why don't we move first to Oya. How would you define the main challenges or what's at stake in your thematic track, and what would you invite people to look for this week?
Thanks for having me, first of all, and it is truly an honor to appear in front of such a distinguished fellow co-panelists, as well as such distinguished audiences, both in line and in person. So thank you for this opportunity, first of all. And there is certainly a very direct linkage between confronting inequalities, advancing inclusion, and peace. As we all know, civil wars and instability are often grounded in inequality, injustice, as well as mismanagement of resources. So our current peace building activities are certainly based on this recognition of this important linkage. And the SDG 16, which is incorporated into the UN Agenda 2030, seeks to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development and providing access to justice for all, building effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. This recognition in and of itself does not mean that our jobs are over yet. So the inclusion of different voices, protection of the most vulnerable and marginalized people, a participatory approach, equal access to justice, tackling corruption, oversight, and accountability of our institutions are certainly central to these linkages. And this thematic track that I'm talking about today is all about creating stronger institutions that will take note of all citizens' interests and reduction of violence, promotion of the rule of law, equal access to justice, institutional reform, and combating corruption. So what we have as challenges in front of us and the call in front of us has been certainly exacerbated in the last 20 months or so, when the world has witnessed many inequalities that laid bare the desperate need for advocating for equality, inclusiveness, as well as spotlighted the cleavages that occur between the well-off portions of the society and the worse of portions of the society, such as the rich versus poor, minorities versus the majorities, blue collar versus white collar people. So the domestic and gender-based violence has certainly increased as well. And we have seen, unfortunately, polarization on the rise. We have seen an increase in the number of people that have been pushed into extreme hunger and poverty. And we have also seen the rise of unsustainable inequalities, such as the vaccine equity issues, both within our nations as well as across our nations. And also last year's Black Lives Matter protests have shown that these are not only issues that should concern the developing world or the global south, it should also concern everyone, including the global north as well. So here we see additional problems imposed by the pandemic on both security and peace, as well as economic development. So we see an emphasis on the acknowledgement of the central role that is played by human security. So in that regard, the recognition of the interlinkages between these different realms that are not normally regarded as separate silos, to me, is a central aspect that needs to be discussed in this particular track. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Oya. And yes, it seems that the particular version of problems that we have today don't respect borders, don't respect class, don't respect developed or underdeveloped. So thank you for underlining a little bit more of that we really are in this one together. Why don't we go over to you, Anne-Marie? COVID has also changed a bit. I mean, we were talking about digital stuff before. Now we seem to be talking about even more. Is it all bleak, or how do you see it? What should people be looking out for this week?
Well, thank you for that, and it's really a pleasure and honor to be here with you today. I'd like to answer your question more by an anecdote of a project that I have been involved with over the last about 2 years. Towards the end of 2019, my organization, ICT for Peace, joined forces with the Global Network of Women Peacebuilders to do a project looking at how women peacebuilder groups use technologies in their work. Now, we submitted this to the Swiss Federal Department of Foreign Affairs, who very sponsored this project. And little did we know that just a few months later, the pandemic would come and set, and really change the landscape of how these different groups were using technologies. So really, we are looking at women's peacebuilding groups in developing nations. Many of the women didn't have access to technologies. They didn't even have internet access where they were located. And certainly was not part of what they were using a lot in their work. But the pandemic really forced them, if they were to remain engaged in their processes, to use these technologies. And so what we found is that there are many challenges, absolutely, but also lots of things that give us hope for how these types of technologies can be used to promote peace. And I will say that I think that the face of peace building and negotiations is never going to look the same. We have really been advanced forward by the pandemic. It's really accelerated the use of these technologies. And there have been some really good and even surprising results that we found are, the impacts of the pandemic on peace building. We have issued a a brief that kind of outlines the main findings. We're going to have a report that's coming out at the end of the year. But I would say the future is not bleak, but there's still a lot of lessons that we have to learn. And at the same time, things are changing very quickly, so we have to keep up. I'm going to put a link to the report in the chat, but for those of you in the audience, you can do a search for the Global Women Women Peace Builders. They have the report on their website.
Thank you for that. And thank you for responding also with an anecdote. Sometimes the best way is the stories. We don't just want all of the best practice and lessons learned. It's sometimes the stories that we're trying to look for this week. Thank you, Anne-Marie. And so, Mark, what about on your end? What should people be looking for in this week? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities also for looking beyond, moving beyond securitization?
Thank you, and good evening from Manila. For beyond securitization, I think what's very important, because we're talking about narratives, what's important is what's the story that we are going to tell about what threatens us, what are we afraid of, what our respective communities think makes us feel secure and safe. As we all know, this year we are commemorating as well the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 and the wars waged in its name. And 20 years later, when the United States pulled out of Afghanistan, the dominant conversation still is centered on the West. The cost of war for the United States, the threat of migration and terror to developed countries, the failure of locals to be modernized, and even the need, again, at the call for more military interventions in the name of liberal democracy and human rights. And soon countless of analysis mushroom on how this will impact peace and security and transnational terrorism network in Southeast Asia and the Philippines, which has been treated as the next frontier of the so-called global jihad. And suddenly, all of us outside Europe, especially the Near and the Far East, are seen again as nothing else but battlefields, as if we are simply victims to be saved rather than problem solvers and leaders in our own right. And so I think this is very important that we're discussing the fourth theme, which is what is beyond securitization. It is not just looking for effective means for preventing or addressing state violence and human rights violations. It's about challenging dominant understandings of security. Security as a part of a war rhetoric when government applies it to all social problems, even when those shouldn't be analyzed only and primarily from the lenses of war. Security only in terms of negative peace and direct violence rather than positive peace and other forms of violence, or security that is determined from above, from our own authoritarian governments borrowed from their security partners and from the state. And finally, security only those from the West, only from the center, only for the few. So beyond securitization means finding and building peaceful and rights-respecting alternatives, better and grounded stories that reflect realities on what drives insecurity. So we have to ask, who are the most affected and what do they think are needed to be free from want, fear, and indignity? And what are their ideas, capacities, and solutions that truly make a difference to their everyday lives? We are at a crossroads. We failed in 9/11, when we crafted a narrative on war on terror. I hope that facing COVID-19 and what the world is after COVID-19, I hope that narrative is something that is indeed together, which means together isn't just, equality, that it also means that, making space for those who are in the margins. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mark. That was a very eloquent description. And how many times over the last few years, both at Peace Week and in general, have we seen that answers need to become emerging from below instead of imposed from on top, and how aware we have to be of how sometimes our solutions might make the things even worse that we're trying to solve. So thank you. We need to be listening more, and we need to be more collectively addressing these things. So Lindsay, why don't we come back to you? You've heard a little bit what others have said. Some things are quite interesting. There might be some overlaps. But what would you say both at the COP and in this track that you're also representing? What are the seeds? What's kind of emerging? And any other insights you would like to pass on to us?
did you want to look at obstacles for peace, or did you want to go into seeds, just to clarify?
I think we'll go to seeds, but if you feel that there's an obstacle you want to address first, feel free. We are a free-flowing, moderated session.
I would like to do some obstacles because I think they will build on the seeds, but they also connect very much to what Mark has said. And just briefly, the political will. What are the obstacles? The what and the how. And in climate particularly, but in other environmental issues, the what is, are we acting urgently, fairly, and sufficiently for 1.5 temperature limit? Or are we not, where we could go up to 5 Celsius by 2100? And that's between the manageable and the unmanageable, or the unimaginable. And the how, which is how do we do the climate action? How do we do the environmental peace building? The role of inequalities has been mentioned already, that are exacerbated by environmental destruction or climate change. And also how climate change is a threat multiplier we talk about. But we also need to have an honest discussion about who holds the power, who holds the money, who holds the extraction. These issues have to be looked at as root causes, because we see them in all our peace. We look at conflict. What's behind that conflict? Who has the power? And who does it benefit to have that conflict sometimes? So to bringing that into the COP, I also wanted to say, in the COP and as peace builders here, the role of the geopolitical sphere coming into a COP is absolutely critical. Everything you are all doing on non-climate issues, on building peace, is critical to success here at something like a COP. Because if we have a positive geopolitical atmosphere, we have more chance of getting these decisions than if we don't. And so political will and trust, showing leadership, developed countries, for example, at the COP, are they pushing for the leading in reducing their emissions? Are they pushing for climate finance for developing countries and the poorest countries, for loss and damage? Are they showing that leadership? And just to finish off, that links to, and this goes into seeds, I can do more, but how are we looking at how we're using our defense budgets? Are they, as Mark also said, are they actually protecting people? If environmental destruction is threatening our existence, then where do we put our defense money, right? So all these questions come into that, and I can add more on seeds of peace if you'd like, but I did want to cover that first.
Thank you for that. Well, we'll give you a chance then later. But I see a lot of students in the room. Pay attention. She's asking the right questions. That they will. These will. Not that we have to find all the answers this week, but we need to hold some of these questions with us, and I think for a while to come. Oh yeah, why don't you come over to you? It's interesting. Some of the things that Lindsay said were probably things you could say as well in terms of inequalities. But what would you say then are in terms of obstacles? And if you want to also touch on what are the seeds that you see that we can be planting to overcome these obstacles?
Yeah, my comments will certainly echo all my co-panelists, remarks, I think, in that sense, Rainer. So I think that if we fail in creating strong institutions that are able to confront inequalities and advance inclusion, we will have a more laborious path towards achieving peace. And we see this rise in authoritarianism, we see a rise in civil unrest. Like I mentioned, we have a rise in polarization. We have increasing statistics for corruption, and which has a direct negative impact on the social fabric of our societies, including the provision of health, education, as well as the protection of other basic human rights. And we see rising global military expenditures as an echo to my fellow co-panelists' remarks, and misappropriation of funds, poorly executed budgets. We have deficiencies in the management of security services as well as the justice system. These are all, I think, obstacles to peace. And it is really important to focus on, I think, both negative peace as well as positive peace, because it has direct implications on the consolidation of peace once these statistics on negative peace are accomplished. So this is where I would like to talk about the seeds of peace. I think that that greater institutionalization based on good governance principles, reforming the security and justice informations by forming a closer connection between the states on the one hand and their populations on the other hand, really constitute the seeds for peace, I think. So just, peaceful, inclusive societies can't be achieved if violence against minorities, violence against children, women isn't really tackled through a multi-sectoral and comprehensive approach. So for me, this is where the SDGs really come into place with their complex implementation processes involving both national ownership, at the same time flexibility, innovation, as well as incorporation of multi-stakeholder efforts at all levels. So this is really important and quite promising, I think. And distinguished platforms like the Geneva Peace Week brings together communities with expertise on peace building, so that we can share our experiences, best practices, as well as lessons learned. So we see successful implementation of concepts based on human security. We see successful implementation of the countries achieving their targets on SDG 16. We see successful discussions of the lessons learned, what went wrong, for instance, in Afghanistan, what was wrong with the withdrawal process. How has the international community really failed in such a context, and what can we learn for our future endeavors? I think that we should still set our goals high, a narrow understanding of human security, and the protection of people from simply the fear from want really doesn't get us too far, I think, in this particular context. We need to talk about freedom from want as well as freedom from indignities, which is so important for positive peace-related implications, I think. So we should focus our intellectual energies as well as our resources on these aspects in order to really plant the seeds of peace. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, we know you're a professor. If the international community was in one of your classes, they probably wouldn't have gotten a passing grade. However, thank you for giving some inclination that there is hope that we can get this. They might be able to, edit their paper and improve on the corrections. Anne-Marie, why don't we go back to you? Again, both on the sides of obstacles and seeds. You gave one in the anecdote, but what else would you want to give us encouragement in this week?
So I would start with a couple of obstacles or certainly challenges to peace, which have been in the newspapers, and we're hearing all about this. The increase of malicious attacks such as ransomware on things such as our critical infrastructure installations and on systems that we all use and we depend on. Certainly the growing impact and influence of mis and disinformation in creating division and conflict between different societies, and also the use of algorithms by social media platforms to really amplify that division and create a lot of discord and even engender conflict. So these are important challenges that we have to look at. Another thing that we need to look at is the growing power of non-state actors, including private commercial actors, who are really having a major influence on peace and security today in all aspects, from, again, as I mentioned, the social media aspect to even identifying where there are attacks and who is supposedly behind them. So the growing nature of commercial actors who have an amazing also financial power in many cases is something that we need to take into account. But hope is not lost. I would say that there certainly are the seeds of peace, and there are things that are growing, particularly within the humanitarian community, which is starting to really embrace how technologies can be used to foster peace and to build peace. One of the things that is really heartening is the use of technology to increase inclusion. We've been hearing so much about how we've been, divided, people being excluded, but technologies can bring us together. I mean, just this event today, where we are joined from all corners of the world, and we have participants who are joining from all over the world, many of whom would not have made it to Geneva for this conference. And so this is, I think, a very encouraging trend, and one that's not going to reverse. We're entering the age of hybrid meetings in which we can connect together and and really exchange views and overcome some of these obstacles and challenges. Another thing that I think is really exciting, and I just want to mention this, is it's kind of a trend in the, say, cyber mediation and negotiation, peace building communities, is the use of technologies to de-otherize the enemy, to really use technologies to, again, maybe the opposite of the algorithms that have been used to divide and breed conflict, use of technologies to build empathy and understanding. And I'll bring another anecdote. It's not one that I was involved with, but I just think it's such a great approach. There is an organization called Hack the Planet, which use virtual reality with tribal leaders who had been in conflict for generations in Uganda, and enable them to meet virtually and learn about each other's lives and why they were involved in the conflict. They created kind of a day in the life of your enemy to try to make the enemy more human. And so when they actually came together around the table to discuss, the negotiations went much better. And it helped to like really build peace. So these are the kinds of things that technology can be used to really help foster understanding. And as I said, kind of mentioned at the beginning, we can use algorithms not only to divide and sow division, but we can use algorithms to really bring us together and see how we can empathize and how we can get along. So we need to really be aware of these things, though. Technology is going so quickly, evolving so quickly, changing so quickly. And as I mentioned before, so many actors are involved, state and non-state, really growing in so many directions that it's impossible in a way to keep tabs of all of it. But I think if we start to try to identify principles that we all want in order to have that kind of peaceful society, that we identify the ways that these technologies, the things that these technologies need to adhere to, that we can help foster that kind of peace and inclusion. And finally, echoing what was said before by some of the other speakers, I do think that the multi-stakeholder approach of kind of oversight, governance, and effective is a way to have more effective regulatory oversight and control of these technologies. They are so diverse, they bring in so many people from so many walks of life that we really need to have all of those different kinds of expertise involved, but united around common principles that promote peace. So hopefully, and this is exactly this type of week that we're having, the Geneva Peace Week, is one of the things that can help bring us together to try to identify, articulate, and really start to put in place those types of principles to really, guide and create the kind of on and offline spaces that we want in a peaceful society.
Thank you, Anne-Marie, and what a great image also of, and another great anecdote that you gave of de-otherizing, even with this technology, and using the algorithms also for good. Mark, how about you? How are you seeing, what would you say on the side of obstacles and seeds? And as we already pointed out, it seems like some of the things that your co-panelists have said kind of echo with what you might be saying.
Yep, thank you, Rainier. I'll shift, answering this. I'll start with, I think, the seeds and then go with the obstacles, and I'll explain why I have to start with the seeds. You see, local grassroots efforts have always been there. The seeds of peace are often not seeds. They are decades and centuries old forests, representing robust community of practices in preventing and transforming conflicts. So the international community and the general public see that, when we talk about peace, it's about, the ones on the track one, the ones in suits, the ones in, mediated by foreigners and outsiders. But there are communities of practices that have been passed on from one generation to another, sharpened and strengthened each day. Some of the practice, for example, in Mindanao, where we are primarily based, for example, the framework of Husay of the Lumads or indigenous peoples in Mindanao, their way of mediating conflict and building consensus. It's not just unique to Mindanao. It's already mentioned that many indigenous peoples in Africa and the Pacific shares this. But in our case, it is in this framework that they formed the Lumad Husay Mindanao a platform where different IP communities can come together and engage the communist armed conflict and the peace process surrounding this, and also address terror and polarization that is being done to their social fabric. There's also Kakap Dulunan, a memorializing of intertribe, interclan rituals that passed on 50 years back, and they wanted to pass that on to the new generations from the elders to remind them that, we have technology in here. There's also Shura, where in many Muslim communities, it's about consultations among Muslims. But in our partners in Lanao, it includes consultation among members of community regardless of religion and ethnicity. So those rituals are also changing and are being improved as we talk. Why do I have to point this out? Because it's often missed that immense resources, creativity, energy, including time, youth, and lives where and are being poured in peace process and conflict transformation, not only from the international community and donors and governments and embassies, but most importantly by civil society, local civil society and affected communities themselves, volunteers, unpaid, often policies and programs and interventions from the outside, in the name of localization, have imposed on locals on what security is, what needs to be done, such as in the case of PCVE. But that is a discussion for another time. The point is, one size fits all and militarized intervention often uprooted those forests and communities of practice. When, military intervention comes in, suddenly all those efforts that were built, social fabric, are suddenly also gone. And so when we talk about obstacles now, it's obstacles for allowing these forests to continue to thrive. It's number one, the continued investment and incentives from the military sector on media, on academia, on policy sector. Secondly, it's the deeply entrenched inequality and racism, neocolonialism that occupy aid and development system, the research and policy field, the governance system. And it's those narratives that alienate, marginalize, erase, colonize, and dehumanize us, denies us of you understanding that we have autonomy, that we are building solutions already. And when you come in without understanding where the resources of peace are, you are being an obstacle for us. You are not helping us. So finally, it's good that there are emerging networks that seeks to erode these silos, bridge solidarity across global south and global north. For example, the network that I am part of, the Security Policy Alternatives, with the help of friends from Safer World and co-steered by amazing peace activists, feminist allies all over the world, that seeks to bridge and erode those silos, build solidarity while addressing privilege among us, in order to collectively build not only alternatives, not only to push back against militarized and hard security approaches, but support conflict and conflict-sensitive peace building that's already being done for so long. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Powerful words, and of course another powerful image. Seeds don't come just out of anywhere. They come from another plant already, and sometimes we need to go looking in places where we wouldn't have usually looked, and a lot of times the indigenous wisdom, the indigenous seeds will have much more to say even in the global north, which seems to sometimes think they have all the seeds they need. So before we keep going, I would like to find a way now to combine both our audience here in the room with the audience online. And so what I'd ask is if we just put up the slide for a Mentimeter. We won't be asking questions through the microphone. You get to use your QR codes, use your little smartphones, and this will give you the link to also the Mentimeter, where you can post a question. We're getting you engaged. We're being as hybrid as we can. So online, and you can post a question, and also there you can vote on the questions, which one you like the best. While that's going on, while you're all putting in your questions, and also you online are able to post your questions, I'll continue my little dialogue with the panelists, and then we'll check in and see which question was brought up. So another way of keeping you all engaged. And I will go back to my panelists just for a second. Lindsay, since we didn't get enough, I don't know if you were able to finish your part. Did you want to just complete if you had something more to say on the seeds coming up, now that we've given the image of seeds a new metaphor?
Yeah, I would love to, because in many ways it's a very profound and meaningful time to be alive, to be part of this transformation. Also the young voice, which has really given me great strength, and the Graduate Institute. That's why we always were together with them in these events. The climate justice, the Me Too movement, Black Lives Matter. There is this naming that young generations are teaching me and my generation to name. And the naming, for example, in the Human Rights Council, we just had a recognition of the right to a clean, sustainable, and healthy environment. The naming of what we as humanity strive for and deserve from our leaders. And that's about responsibility and accountability and holding each other in our lives and our leaders. So it's that new generation that are the seeds of peace for me too. And the questioning of our economic systems, this is something profound. Any of you studying economics, this is what we need. How do we have an economic system that is sustainable and just and not driving us to extinction? And the transformations, and as also my colleagues mentioned, COVID, there are some profound lessons we can learn from COVID, however traumatic it's been, but we need to listen to what it takes for resilience in our society. So I just want to leave you with that and the connections with peace and justice. I mean, we talk about human rights and sustaining peace. If people are treated equally, if we are respecting and protecting their human rights, then we are sustaining peace. And that's in climate action and environmental peace building. It's all around. So it's not a siloed, it's interconnected. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. And now I guess we'll just quickly check then back to the Mentimeter, what question actually came up. If we have a little Mentimeter assistant in the background. What did you guys actually vote on? Would be interesting to see what questions are actually coming up. Did we get one, or should I continue? People are still voting? Then I will just keep moving a little bit then. Or we did, all right, we've got a question already. Can global peace be achieved without tackling the issues of individual peace? We're starting with easy questions. Why don't we see what you think about that, Oya? And you haven't been holding back so far, but I would ask you, since the time is almost up, just to give shorter answers each one. I know you have so much wisdom to pass on to us, but just shorter answers this time. So, Oya, what would you say? How would you answer this one?
I absolutely would say that you cannot achieve global peace without tackling the issue of individual peace, hence the emphasis on human security, I think because of its emphasis on protection as well as empowerment. So we need to pay attention, special attention to the most vulnerable and recognize the problems that the problems are really interdependent on each other. They rarely occur in isolation. They are almost always interdependent. So without really addressing this freedom from fear, freedom from want, as well as freedom from indignity, I don't think that we can achieve our goal of maintaining and sustaining global peace, I think. So that is very important. And in that regard, there is really no one-size-fits-all types of solutions, I think, to our interdependent problems. We really need to be people-centered, inclusive, bottom-up, emphasizing local ownership and context specificity as well. So you really need to recognize that each context is really independent from the other one. So you need to really delve into an in-depth study of the problems that concern these localities and come up with innovative and respectful type of solutions that are unique to each locality. And I think that in that regard, we need to really resist the temptations on the part of our nation states for self-help, for isolationism, as well as for unilateralism. So the key to us successfully addressing the problem of global peace, we need political will to combine all of our powers and resources and intellects in order to maintain and sustain that global peace.
Thank you, Oya. we have one more question that came through, and I would like to pass it on to Mark. Also, just again, a brief response. If you could say, how can civil society and activists be more involved in this highly institutionalized space? I think you've given some insights into it, but really, if your last word could come with that, and then Anne-Marie will get back to you with also sending us off. Unfortunately, the time is almost up. But Mark, first, how can civil society and activists be more involved in this highly institutionalized space?
Occupy space. I told my co-panelists this when we were preparing this, that I feel awkward occupying this space because, you know, I am with great people in here. You know, they have PhDs. You know, they are heads of their organizations, but I have to just suck it in because this isn't about me. You know, and it isn't anymore about my expertise. It's, again, I always refer to it, the community of practice that is built around me and my organization. So when I talk here, I draw my courage from there. If, you know, the institutionalized spaces aren't there, build spaces. Build spaces. Because I think in the cracks of the current systems, and I agree with Lindsay, when we talk about system, it's about the economic system, you know. It's questioning whether it is, does it perpetuate, you know, us being together, or does it perpetuate us being apart because, you know, we are looking for profit, we are looking for extraction and consumption. So, but this current system has cracks. Occupy as well those cracks. You don't have to sit in the top table, you know. Even right now, this isn't my actual work. Still, I will have to go back to the work that I have with the communities. Have to turn, you know, stop pretending and take out my suit that I barely wore in the past 3 years because I have to occupy that space in like 18 together.
Months either, so thank you.
So the point is, we can build, you know, a better, you know, alternative, a better world, I think, in the cracks. So that's it.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. So Anne-Marie, final thought. What would you send us off for after this panel?
Well, I am an optimist, and so that doesn't mean that we don't recognize the challenges, the problems that we have. I think it's very important as an optimist to actually be able to look at that and say, how can we make these better? So, you know, in terms of building communities and trying to have, you know, find our voice to promote the kinds of things that we want to do and the world that we want to create and live in, I encourage all of us to take part of these and use, you know, technologies can help us do that. We can connect and exchange views and get expertise from people around the world, understand what others are experiencing, you know, not just de-otherizing them, but really understanding and having, you know, connecting with those that are having really facing difficult challenges that are quite different from ours. And from that understanding, I think we have more of a chance to build something that's more sustainable, and more, you know, again, creating the kind of world around the principles that we want. So I would come up with just a few final thoughts, echoing most of what I've said, but to come up with principles that for using all of these systems, and I'm, you know, focused on technologies, but how we can use all of these different elements that contribute to our societies to create the kind of world that we want to live in. We need to translate those principles into concrete actions that then we can implement on the ground to really shape, you know, how we do things, whether it's environmental, whether it's communities, whether it's, you know, trying to build more inclusion or more robust, less securitization of things. And also to really create through those systems effective multi-stakeholder collaboration, because each of us brings a unique perspective, and we're living in a world where now we all have impacts in a way, or we can have impacts in a way that really wasn't the way before. So in terms of looking forward, let's try to find those principles for peace that we really want to underline and guide all the areas that we're working in, and see how we can implement them and what we need to do to make those happen.
Thank you, Anne-Marie, and thank you also to all the panelists. There's some valuable insights there, both for your specific track and that which transcends these tracks, that a lot of the issues we need to face actually need much more collaboration, much more bottom-up, much more looking across the different issue trend, breaking out of our silos, looking beyond just for answers from our own countries and regions. And I really remain with that image that if we're going to look for seeds, they come from plants in other places, and be willing to look in places that you wouldn't have looked before. So that is not the end of the conversation. It was actually just the beginning. It is just questions that you need to keep asking yourself for the rest of the week. So again, just a big round of applause to our panelists. I hope the camera shows that. You've helped set the tone for the week. I hope they got to show you the room, so you saw you weren't just talking to your computers. Thank you so much. Lindsay, good luck at the COP. Go get it done. We're counting on you.
Thank you.
No pressure. Now, we're almost done. I would like to invite my two colleagues, Zach Alvarado and Raisa Kanku, to just let you know what exciting other stuff is going on this week. And then we'll wrap up. We didn't tell you at the beginning, but we have a graphic recorder who's been graphically recording what's been happening today, and we'll show an image at the end. But now to some of the rest of the team. The team has been mentioned often that made the magic of Geneva Peace Week happen, and here are two of them that did it.
Hi everyone. How are you all doing today? Great to see some great faces here. Those online, nice to see you all when I see the recording. And so yeah, it was definitely a great session this afternoon and this evening, and we'd just like to give you all a hand clap for being here, and for those watching online, thanks again for watching with us. Thank you. And so yeah, to give you an update of what's happening over the week, myself, I do the digital series contributions, and so we'll have about 23 digital series that we'll be showcasing over the week. Podcasts, videos, and some blogs. So feel free to check out our websites, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Spotify, awesome. I should speak louder. So it's Spotify that we'll be having, and you'll be able to watch some contributions. We also have the Apple podcast where you can watch some of them, and the YouTube where you can be able to watch some of the videos too. And so we hope you can engage with that, because that's also connected to the Geneva Peace Week with the 4 thematic tracks that we'll be having over the whole week. Something else to look forward to is the Salon de Devise. So if you're at the Institute, please feel free to go to Salon de Devise. We'll be having all those different contributions showcased, so all the different videos. Feel free to check it out, to tag us, to just be like, hey, we watched this, it was really awesome. So great things to have you guys for that. And then throughout the week, we have special events. And so one of them will be an escape game. So I hope you can sign up for the escape game. It'll be running throughout the whole week, and there are different sessions to check out on the escape game. So we hope that you can participate in that over the week. We'll also have a peace fair on Friday. And this is an opportunity for you to also network, get to know other organizers, other initiatives at the Institute itself too. So we hope that you can participate in that. We will have the digital series office hours. And so this is a session whereby it will happen on Wednesday and Thursday. You can get to interact with the organizers who created the contributions over the week, and discuss with other attendees who have also watched the same videos or these podcasts, and find out what they thought about these contributions. And the last great event we'll be having is a participatory plenary session, and this is an opportunity for you to engage with the thematic track leads, and we'll be having an expert facilitator who will be driving this conversation in breakout rooms, so you'll be able to really understand what did you take out throughout your different sessions that you went through while you were at the Geneva Peace Week. And I'll pass to my colleague, Zach.
Thank you very much, Raisa. I would just like to kindly remind you all to please download the GPW mobile app for the full GPW experience. There you can access your online workshops, digital series contributions, and engage with other participants through photo sharing and chat boards. And the person who engages the most throughout the week on the GPW app and is at the top of the app leaderboard will win a cruise for 2 with a 4-course meal across Lac Léman. And for those who are not in Geneva, another gift will be given to you. As well as 2 winners will be selected who attended both the opening and closing ceremonies in person. So for everyone here, please remember to register and attend for the closing ceremony this Friday. And I would like to now introduce the Global Youth Keynote, sharing the perspectives of youth from abroad as to what peace means to them.
Plant seeds of peace.
Peace.
和平
安息 aman damai
Teka Salam
Shanti.
paz
Amahoro
Peace, peace, and peace.
Around the world, communities living through war are crying out for peace. But the realities of conflict silence our voices. Nearly 50 million children are missing out on school because of international conflict. And yet we are expected to know English in order to share our stories with the global community. 99.1 million people went hungry in 2020 as a result of armed violence. And yet we are blamed for exasperating insecurity when communities clash over resource stress. 1 in every 4 young people are affected by war. And yet when we speak out for peace, we are further threatened. At least 331 human rights activists were murdered in 2020. Peace advocates and environmental defenders are in desperate need of protection from reprisal. And so we call on governments to guarantee protection through mechanisms like the Escazú Agreement.
The world dedicated nearly $2 trillion to military spending in 2020, an increase of 2.6%. Meanwhile, the UN peacekeeping budget was cut by $444 million, and most of the remaining money goes into military and police personnel. The international peace and security agenda is in reality an industrial profit and security agenda. The same budget that funds foreign aid fills the bucket of weapons dealers. And so we call on countries and corporations to divest from the military-industrial complex. The so-called peace community is complicit in this. Foreign workers profit from top-down approaches to peace building that are more focused on self-interest than collective good. More money is spent on hotel conferences for external experts than on local initiatives. And so we call on the UN and other peace organizations to invest in stakeholder-led processes. This includes youth-led movements and community organizing efforts.
Because in spite of all barriers, youth around the world are building peace in their communities. We are launching projects connecting initiatives and healing the intergenerational trauma. Yet all too often, our efforts are met with cynicism. We are portrayed as naive and powerless, too young to make a difference. Instead of partnering with us, you offer us a superficial representation and act as though we would be grateful to play the unjust game you created. But you are not your tokens. We are readers. We are engineers, artists, teachers, activists, and we are all doing a great deal. However, our success depends on your actions as well as ours.
Because peace is both the ends and the means. Peace is the goal and the prerequisite. We need peace to build peace. We need peace to go to school. We need peace to start families. We need peace to save our planet.
My name is Christiane Zako from Trinidad and Tobago. I need peace to ensure the conservation of the environment.
I'm Chen Men from Hong Kong. I need peace to save my brothers and sisters from unnecessary harm.
I'm Mayatar from Lebanon. I need peace to keep my community hunger-free with food lust.
I'm Akram Qadir from Iraq, Kurdistan. I seek peace for sustainability and development.
I'm Marsha Amani from Malaysia.
I need peace to encourage children to be empathetic leaders with the ASEAN Youth Advocates Network.
My name is Alexis Cañari from Peru, and I need peace to keep working with the amazing team of Hello World, which is using the power of languages as a tool for building respect, tolerance, and understanding within communities.
Peace is achieved through mutual understanding by communicating with the language that everybody understands. Art, songs, dance, stories, plays. There is no universal language in this world other than creativity. Art speaks to the soul, to the spirit of human connection. It is the thing that helps us connect with our non-human family. For in order to create a system of peace, we must value the relationship with our ecosystem. Art, we have spoken it since we were born. Our parents sang it to us. Our friends shared it with us. We danced before we walked, sang before we spoke. And now is the time to speak this language, to speak free of grammar, vocabulary, structures, to use our freedom of creativity to find peace, not to create peace through our systems, but to find peace with our ecosystems, to share peace with each other and our universe.
We were given a word at war, but vowed to plant seeds of peace. Together, we are growing those seeds into an ecosystem. When we say peace is both the ends and the means, the circular dependence can seem daunting. Where are we supposed to begin? Yet, it is that very dependency that gives us the answer, and nature is our teacher. In nature, ecosystems do not create or destroy, but transform and exchange. The interdependence of all organisms and species is exactly why the ecosystem is healthy. This means that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. But it also means that peace anywhere contributes to peace everywhere. The inner peace we foster within ourselves and the meaningful relationship we build within our communities are vital parts of global justice. The urgent threat of climate change is also a vibrant call to collective action, to valuing and uplifting our mutual interdependence, to understanding that environmental degradation, institutional racism, and armed conflict are all barriers to peace, but that we have the tools to disconstruct those barriers. If only we are willing to break down the silos we have created. If only we are willing to see the connections. If only we are willing to honor the wisdom of indigenous people, the teachings of nature, the vision of youth leaders.
We have planted the seeds.
Welcome to our ecosystem.
Come and stay in peace.
So we couldn't end without giving the voice to the next generation. What we would like to do is just show what the graphic recording has been able to do. And then, of course, there's one more quote that I love from Benjamin Franklin that said, "Water may separate people, but wine brings them together." So we will invite you to a reception, which is generously offered by the Swiss Confederation, the Republic and Canton of Geneva, and the City of Geneva. But first, can we see what our graphic recorder was able to record? As that gets up there, I would just like to thank the technicians, thank the interpreters, apologize for going too fast, thank the Graduate Institute for all their support. And now, wow, the graphic recorder was quite... There is quite a lot to take in there, and it will be up on our social media. We will be doing a similar exercise in the closing. We're trying to capture everything that you're learning and discussing this week in many different ways. As we said, we're even offering you an escape game. So as you can tell, this Geneva Peace Week is trying to engage you in every possible way. There's a lot to discuss. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of questions to hold. But first of all, let's have a moment to share those questions also over a glass of wine and some food or some other, a glass of orange juice. And thank you again. It's been a wonderful event. Thank you to everyone following online. And I wish you a great Geneva Peace Week. And we look forward to seeing you also at the closing. Thank you, everyone. And follow the indications up to the cafeteria. Thank you. You'll have to show your bracelets to get in.